down there in sunny Las Vegas. We're scrambling behind the scenes here today, sending Brad a bad link, but we figured it out. Shout out to producer Mick. Brad, how are we making out today?
Hey, doing well. Shout out to Mick as well. Thank you guys for that. Sorry about that.
Oh, no sweat, man. So I like the hat. Let's talk a little Alabama football here before we get into your early picks. We have four of them. So we check out the situation for them. People were down on them for a lot of the season. Now they're getting some positive vibes, I guess you could say. 6 straight wins since that loss to Texas, including separate 14-point wins over both Ole Miss and Tennessee. LSU on deck. Coming up in their next game, a loss from last season that they will be looking to avenge. So we see them now on the national championship futures odds board, tied with Oklahoma in the ballpark of 14-1 to win the whole damn thing. So 2 questions about Alabama. Do you think they get into the playoff is question number 1. Question number 2, how do you think they'd fare head-to-head in an SEC championship game against Georgia?
Yeah, so loaded question. I'll say this. I think in a normal year, I would say no. I don't like that this year's Alabama team isn't strong enough for me to say, hey, they got a shot to win the SEC and go win 2 games in the playoff because the teams are too strong. This year's different, though. I don't think there is a dominant team. Maybe Michigan is that team, but again, Michigan hasn't played really anybody yet. So we don't know how Michigan would look against a top 10 opponent. So, no, they're just as alive as their 10, 12 other teams are right now in the mix as far as college football. And I haven't been able to say that in any season for at least 15 years, as far as that having that many teams that are legitimate playoff contenders and legitimate chance of winning 1 or 2 playoff games. Alabama's path. It's not the easiest, but it is also going to see Alabama favored in all their remaining regular season games. They get the all important game against LSU at home. They're not going to be a significant favorite. You're looking at Alabama probably in that 3 to 4 point range as far as a home favorite in that one. And then if Alabama were to go play Georgia in an SEC championship game, some of it's dependent if Brock Bowers is back for Georgia. He's a guy that's worth a point and a half to the point spread. But let's just say Brock Bowers is out. Georgia would still be a 3 or 4 point favorite against Alabama in an SEC championship game.
Okay, moving on. Let's take a look at the Heisman race. It's really heating up right now. Big shakeups on the odds board here the past couple of weeks. Caleb Williams, you came on last week and you said you think he lost it in that game against Notre Dame where he threw 3 interceptions. He's way down to 80-1 to win the award. We have a new favorite, though. J.J. McCarthy, the new favorite over Penix Jr. Mervyn Harrison Jr. getting into the mix as well. You can find him at 20-1. He went off for 162 receiving yards against Penn State. So anything on the Heisman futures odds board standing out to you right now?
Well, it's pretty much waving in the wind. I mean, a drastic change as far as the odds board. I did come on the show a couple weeks ago and say J.J.
Yep.
McCarthy
Yep.
might be worth a look. Because Michigan was playing so well, 30-1 just a couple weeks ago. Obviously, you can't find that now, but looking ahead, I mean, he's going to have 2 big high-profile games against Penn State and Ohio State. Michigan will be favored in both. So I understand the movement there. I'm not sure that Michael Penix's bad game off a big win against Arizona State should automatically drop his odds as much as they did, but we'll see. He's also got a lot of big games down the stretch. There's one quarterback that I think people need to be looking out for. It is Jaden Daniels for LSU. Big game against Alabama next week. The whole world will be watching that game. I think LSU's offense is going to have some success in that game against Alabama's defense. If Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for LSU, goes in to Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa and they upset, won't be a big one, but it'll still grab a lot of people's attention, he'll be in the mix as far as being at least a finalist for New York. So that would be the one bet I'd make right now, Jaden Daniels, LSU quarterback.
Yeah, futures betting all about timing. Now might be the time to make that bet. Okay, so let's get into some of these games coming up this weekend. Bets that you recommend placing today. Iowa State taking on Baylor, a 1.5 spread in this one. What side do you like?
Like Iowa State, the road favorite here. I love this comparison as far as data points. You don't get this too often in college football. Both of these teams, Iowa State and Baylor, both their last game was a game at Cincinnati. And I just love comparing what happened in those 2 games. Both teams won at Cincinnati. Both teams pulled an upset at Cincinnati, but disparate box scores. Iowa State deserved to win that game, significantly so. They outgained Cincinnati by 150 yards, dominated Cincinnati. Baylor last week just pulled an upset against Cincinnati. Another phony final for Baylor. They got a fluke touchdown off of a fumbled kickoff where it bounced off a guy and the guy picked it up and returned it for a touchdown. So they scored two touchdowns in a matter of 10 seconds and they won a game by 3. So I'm not buying this Baylor team. Keep in mind, they also had a dramatic comeback from Central Florida. Other than the fourth quarter and a fluke touchdown against Cincinnati, this could be a one-win team. And then what's the point spread for this game? It's at least 3 for Iowa State. So I'm always, change one play in one game. Does that alter the point spread significantly? If it does, I like fading those narratives. So Iowa State for me, let's lay the 1.5.
Okay, next up we have a monster spread. Pittsburgh is a 19.5 point underdog versus Notre Dame. Do you think the Fighting Irish cover the big number here?
No, I don't. So 2 fluky finals as far as these two teams' last games, creating some value here on Pittsburgh. I'll give you one, though. I'm not a big series history guy, but I've been watching this series my entire life being a former Notre Dame fan. 13-2. Last 15 times Pittsburgh has played Notre Dame. Doesn't matter the coaches, doesn't matter the players for each team. 13-2. That is Pittsburgh's record against this number. Notre Dame hardly ever gets margin against Pittsburgh, at least series history. But as far as this year's teams, let's talk about it. Notre Dame beat USC by 28 in their last game. Phony final. They were +5 in turnovers. Got outgained. Got a kick return touchdown. So were they better than USC? Yes. Were they 4 touchdowns better than USC? No. Pittsburgh, if you watched over the weekend, had a really questionable officiating call that basically lost them the game. If they don't call the quarterback down as far as where he slid, if they just rule it where it looked like he got the first down, Pittsburgh's able to run out the clock. That would have made 2 straight wins for them with a brand new quarterback. And I think there'd be a lot more positive energy around this Pittsburgh team. So I got to ask yourself this again. If you change that officiating call, what's this point spread if Pittsburgh's off 2 wins? I don't think it's 19.5. Therefore, I see value here in Pitt plus 19.5.
Okay, Pitt to keep that one from getting too out of hand. Next up, we have California. They are a double-digit underdog as well, an 11-point dog taking on USC. Who do you like here?
I like Cal plus 11. I'll just start it with the biggest disparity in rest this week in college football is Cal off a bye against USC playing a 6th straight week and a 3rd straight big game. Honestly, a 6th straight big game for them because they played down to the level of all their opponents. The Arizona State game was a game that went down to 60 minutes. The Colorado game, they're blowing out Colorado, came down to a recovered onside kick. Then they, go double overtime. USC, I'm talking about here, against Arizona. Probably should have lost that game. Get blown out against Notre Dame. Lose to Utah in a 60-minute game on the final play. How much energy does this team have left? And also, is there a dream crusher, a bubble burst? You're not going to the playoffs now with 2 losses. You're probably not going to the Pac-12 championship game. What is the mentality of this fragile state of program? Meanwhile, Cal off a bye. Last time they probably ever play USC because Cal's off to the ACC. USC's off to the Big Ten. I think there'll be hyped up atmosphere here. Cal plus 11 for me. I think they're live. I think they win the game outright.
Where do you stand on some people saying Caleb Williams should just sit out at this point since USC probably has not a whole lot to play for anymore?
I mean, I'm not that type of person. I mean, win or
Same.
lose. I mean, I'm not having a good year on this show. I still, come on and do the show, give out my opinions, bring some energy to it, at least as best as I can. So I'm just, you want to wave the white flag. I mean, okay, fine, wave the white flag, but I would hope that he pays back all his NIL endorsement deals for the rest of the year. I'm sure that's not going to be the case. So play. I mean, last I checked, you get hurt in practice. You can get hurt walking down the street. I mean, you're signed up to play football at a big time school like USC. Go play, man. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been impressed with it. Regardless of the last couple of weeks, even before that, if you looked at body language, you looked at fundamentals, you looked at his just mechanics, they're not there compared to last year. Just looks lazy, sloppy.
Yeah, he fumbled in the bag a little bit here. A bit of you call it the stretch run of his college football career before he enters the NFL as the definitive number 1 guy, and it has not.
Oh, I don't. You know what? He'll be number 1. I wouldn't put him number 1. I wouldn't draft him number 1. There's your hot take.
You're hearing some whispers. Who would you pick number 1 then?
It's going to depend on how they finish. Drake May or J.J. McCarthy. I think. Okay. I'll tell you what. You want an odds? Go look up and see what J.J. McCarthy could get being the number 1 pick. He's a guy a lot of people are going to be talking about. not from now until the end of the season. Because I got a sneaky suspicion Michigan might win the national title. And if he's performing at a high level in the most high leverage games of the season, people are going to love that. They're going to love the arm talent.
Yeah, J.J McCarthy worth their look maybe. Caleb Williams, came out last week that he might want equity in the team of whoever drafts him. I'm sure the veterans on the team would love that. The young guy coming in who's never played a snap in the NFL being an owner on the actual team. So that was a bit silly. Let's wrap it up with one last pick, though. Tennessee and Kentucky, a 3.5-point spread there. Which side do you like in that matchup?
Yeah, I like the road favorite, Tennessee. We're gonna lay the 3.5. I made it 4.5. Simple power rating. Also, matchup wise, Tennessee the last couple years has really been a bad matchup for Kentucky. Kentucky's just an overrated team that had a hot start due to a weak schedule. Got exposed by Georgia. Missouri then went in there and beat the tar out of them. So Tennessee, very similar team power ratings wise to Missouri. In fact, even better. So Tennessee for me, minus 3.5. We'll keep that one simple.
Okay, there we have it. 4 total picks from Brad. And Brad, we will leave it at that. We thank you very much for joining us on the show today. It's always great talking college football with you. Best of luck with your handicapping the rest of the week, and we will catch you again on Thursday's show.
Thanks for having me as always, Joe.